Hello and welcome to this quick start guide for OTS TAS tool. This is a small application I made that allows you to create TASes for out there somewhere. So I'm just going to go through how to install, set up and use this application. So first, some prerequisites. The current version only runs on Windows, unfortunately, though Mac support is coming. And you also need to obviously own a version of OTS. The latest Steam version will work fine. And then lastly, there is a piece of software you need to install. It's called JPEG's Free Flash Decompiler, and you can find the download link right here. You want whichever one is marked with the latest release, so it will be this file. Not going to go through that process. I assume you know how to install it, but just remember the install path for it because you're going to need it a bit later. And then lastly, we can actually download and install the application itself. So you just hit the download button. I've already downloaded it and I also installed it, but you just double click it and it should go through the whole installation process, and it will also launch the application and it creates a little desktop shortcut. So here's the application itself. Now there are two things that need to be done before you can start using it. In settings, you need to set the Free Flash Decompiler path and you need to set the path to the OTS executable. So we'll start with the Free Flash Decompiler path, which I know is in Program Files, ffdeck, and it's the bat file. So just pick this one and you'll see a green mark showing that you've set the path correctly. And then you want to set the OTS path, and I'm going to just be using version 1.1 because it's easy to use for testing. So just pick the executable that runs the game, like so. And once you've set that up, you can actually start using the program. So now let's go through how you can create the actual TAS in this. The first thing you need to do is install TAS components. This does take a little bit of time, but what it's essentially doing is installing a little mod onto OTS, which allows it to run the TAS files that you're going to be making. So we're just going to wait for that to finish here. It should flash a little message when it's done. There, and now you can start creating the TAS. So you can add actions and you can add comments. Comments are just to keep things organized. You can add some comments. They're very useful once the file starts getting long and you need to keep track of what different parts of it does. But the action is the meat and bone of your TAS. So you have a frame number and then you define whichever action you want to be taken on that frame. So you have horizontal movement, which is left, right, or stop. Vertical movement, which is up, down, or stop. And you have teleshot, cascade shot, and then a regular full jump. And also a custom jump. And this is needed if you want to do a shorter jump or maybe a longer jump. And longer jumps are required for things like boosted jumps or chain jumps. And so that's essentially it. You just pick whatever frame you want to do a thing on, and then you define what that thing should be, and then you keep going like that. In addition, you can also define the final boss start frame, and this just is an easy way to kill the boss. Starting on the frame that is defined here, the game will shoot every other frame, which is the fastest you can shoot, and that just helps you. So just so you don't have to define each of the shots in the final boss fight, you can just say which frame to start on and it will shoot basically until it's dead. So once you've made something, I'm just going to open a test file right here. It's not very interesting, but once you made something, you can run it by hitting compile TAS and run OTS. This is actually going to open out there somewhere. It's also going to compile the TAS and put it where it needs to be for the game to read it. So let's delete that save file. So the thing about dialogues, they are skippable through the TAS, but I wouldn't always recommend it. I've demonstrated it with the first dialog box, not this one, but the one that shows up afterwards. As you can see, I need 3 rows to skip it, and that's because dialog boxes aren't consistent. They don't always show up on the same frame. That has to do with the fact that they're based on real time and not frames. So it will sometimes show up on frame 29, sometimes on 30, sometimes on 31, and so you need to have all of them to cover all of those. You can also just do it manually with your keyboard, and that's perhaps what I'm going to recommend, but just so you know that you can do it with the TAS itself. So this is going to be skipped without me touching the keyboard. But this next cutscene is not going to be skipped, and now is the next dialog box. Just so you know, all the actions that you're doing are being done without me touching the keyboard. So yeah, that's not a very interesting TAS, but it's all been done automatically and it actually works. So then you might change stuff, and then you can compile TAS and run OTS again and keep going like that. So lastly, I just have some tips and tricks and some things to keep in mind. First of all, I kind of forgot to mention that how you can input the frame number. So you can obviously use the numbers on your keyboard, but you can also use the up and down arrow key. This increases or decreases the number by 1. Page up and down increases or decreases it by 10. And my favorite method of inputting the frame number is to just use your scroll wheel. So you can just scroll to whichever frame you want. Also, I didn't mention these buttons over here. There's a duplicate button for duplicating a row. This only duplicates the frame number, because I couldn't think of any logical reason why you'd want to duplicate the action as well. And then you have the button over here, which obviously deletes the row. Though keep in mind that there isn't any undo functionality at the moment, so be wary of what you delete. Another thing is that if you want your game to go back to normal, all you need to do is hit uninstall TAS components. That's again going to take a little bit of time, but your game should go back to normal and you can do normal runs or whatever it is you want to do. The last thing has to do with the shoot 'em up section at the start. It seems to be inconsistent in some scenarios. In the scenario I showed off right here, where you're just moving to the right, it actually seems to be completely consistent. Your ship crashes on the same frame every time. But in the other test that I did for any present, it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't even hit all the ships that I was aiming for. So that's something to keep in mind. So you might need to restart your TAS a couple of times until it crashes on the right frame. And yeah, so you just need to keep that in mind when creating the TAS. So I think that's all the information you need. All the links to where to download different stuff should be below. And if you have any questions, then just contact me wherever you find most convenient, whether that be on Discord or GitHub or here on YouTube, and I'll do my best to answer any questions you have. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have fun with this.